Good morning, everyone. How are we doing out there in Final Cut TV land? We got our first comments. Hello from Jamaica, absolutely. And from the X platform, iNobody, who's usually one of the first commenters over there from the X platform. Let me see who we got today. We got people on the X platform as usual, YouTube, Facebook. Good morning from Connecticut. Absolutely. That's considered the East Coast, right? Connecticut, I think it is. Yeah, I'm sure it is. It's on the East Coast. North, but on the East Coast. I live like mid-level. I live right at the Mason-Dixon line, right below the Mason-Dixon line, which was one of the divisions between the North and the South in the Civil War. So 2026 is less than a week away. Still haven't heard anything about the Creator Summit yet. They said December, so they still got Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. It's East Coast right on Long Island Sound. East Coast right on Long Island Sound, absolutely. We'll get Santa in the picture. Absolutely. So hope everybody had a good Christmas, and I hope everybody has a good New Year's celebration coming up. Yep. We just kept things kind of quiet around here. Nice and low key. Everything's been going fine. We haven't had any. We had the one snow a couple weeks ago. I did a video about. I got a new snow blower, and did a video about blowing the snow for the first video, the first snow we had of 2025. The last snow of 2025, but the first of the 25-26 snow season. We just got it about 2 weeks ago. I guess we got 4 to 5 inches, something like that, which is perfect to test a new snowblower. Perfect. So, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Tuesday sounds like a good day. FMC, to let us know what's going on with the FCP Creative Summit. iNobody experienced a Final Cut Pro crash removing belated retimed audio, also snapping for the audio turned off for just that clip. Snapping turned off just for that clip. So speaking of crashes, there's a situation when I retime clips in Final Cut Pro 11.2, and then I go to export, it says, oh, no, we're still doing background tasks. No, you cannot export. We're still doing background tasks. Well, the background task window shows nothing. There's no activity in the background tasks window. Why? Why doesn't it show? If it's a background task, why doesn't it show up in the background tasks window? Now, I know what it is. It's the retiming, and I chose machine learning, the highest quality. No indication of how long it's going to take. No indication that it's going on other than if you take the playhead and place it over the clip that's retimed, it'll say analyzing. Well, I let that go for over an hour the other day. Little short clips, couple little short clips. Let it go for over an hour. It still was telling me, oh, no, we know best. We know the best. Final Cut Pro knows better than you. You don't export until we get done analyzing these clips for retiming. Why isn't that in the background task window, Final Cut Pro team? Why isn't the retiming, analyzing for retiming, in the background tasks window? Sounds like a data corruption. Not in my case. There's no corruption. I just switched from machine learning to optical flow and then just said, export it anyway. Don't give me this nonsense that you're analyzing the clip after an hour or 2 hours. You're still analyzing. What the heck's wrong with you? You're not optimized enough to get that analyzing done quickly, especially with machine learning? Come on. And then we also have, for Christmas, it's convinced by an uncleared flag that the retiming is still in progress. Could be, but I'm not going to listen to it. I'm going to export my video. So that's a bug. It could be, but I just switched it over to optical flow. Heck with it. I'm not doing anything mission critical. Good morning from the Florida Space Coast. Absolutely. 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 So, quit and restart Final Cut Pro should fix it. I think the Final Cut Pro team should fix it, but I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I have a similar problem when adding text to a timeline with its own audio track below, where the timeline does move smoothly when passing through the area with the text. Good morning from Milwaukee. That is our friend Gabriel chiming in from Milwaukee. We're going to have Gabriel on the Final Cut TV show pre-Creative Summit. Now, I keep waiting for FMC. I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm just saying I keep waiting for FMC to post a new post that says, oh, we didn't mean December. We meant January. We'll have information in January. I keep checking to see if they're going to say that, because here's the thing. Do you mean to tell me that FMC and the Apple Final Cut Pro team have not decided on a date and a location for the Creative Summit before the Christmas vacation? Of course they have. They've had 4 months. They announced it at the beginning of September. It's now the beginning of January. 120 days they've had to get this worked out. So it's still December. We'll give them 3 more days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, over the weekend. I doubt if it's going to be updated, to give us the information. But don't change it to January. You've had plenty of time, whatever the holdup is. But you would have thought they would have had that done before the Christmas vacation, because now the team is on vacation probably. Apple is shut down for a couple of weeks. So there's no decision-making happening now, is my point. Now, maybe FMC is still working out details with the hotel, but I think they already have the date. The location is Cupertino. They've already announced that. So that's not a surprise, Cupertino. We know that. Well, we're going to go to the Spaceship Campus. Yeah, just a workaround. I've troubleshot a problem on part of a clip was locked against edits due to a corruption. Gotcha. Is this live now? Well, what are you watching exactly? Of course, this is live. I had to use Chat GPT to identify the problem. These AI chatbots are iffy. I've seen them say some ridiculous things that completely were not true. They hallucinate sometimes, so you have to be careful about that. You never know how chaotic these seemingly professional orgs get at times. Thank you for the clarification. Are you talking about the clarification of whether we're live? Yes, we're live. It did take some prompting with screenshots to get it to diagnose properly. You have more patience than I do. Perhaps I use it for searching on things. The tech has reached critical mass. How much do we need? I don't think the tech has reached critical mass yet. I think there's no critical mass. I think it can just keep going and keep going and keep going, personally. I am working on a Mac Studio M2 Ultra, so a screen recording with an external audio file should not add stutter to playback. I agree with you. The timeline when adding simple text on top, 100%. That video from you in the town, there is no snow, but your driveway was full of snow. 2 different time periods. In the town, do you mean Christmas, the Christmas one I did? That is because that was weeks later from the snow. The snow was a couple of weeks ago, but it's the first snow we've had and probably the last snow we've had in 2025. Yes, thank you. Absolutely. No problem. Skip Rope 536, where are you from? Where are you from? Let me know. So we are MA. Is that Maine? Maine or Massachusetts? Let me look it up at ChatGPT. MA. T. Was in New York City 20 years. I got you. New York City's, I like New York. I like the cities, those cities, East Coast cities. Your videos are superb. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I was one of the first production companies to use Avid in the early 90s. My iPhone is incredible. Retired DP 16 millimeter and 35 millimeter film. So, yeah, it was New York Avid. Of course, I realized he meant Avid. Let me just see something here. Don't allow. No, you don't need that. Massachusetts. MA is Massachusetts. See, I thought Maine, MA, but it's Massachusetts. Okay. So I was back in the 90s, I was signed to a record label out of Boston, Star Rhythm Records. So I visited there a few times. Plus my brother went to college there back in the day. He used to tell me back in the early 70s, when I'd go to visit, he'd say, you got to see this band that plays at the Rathskeller. it was Aerosmith. Aerosmith was just starting out then. He was going to college then. They would play at the local Rathskeller, dingy place. He said, you got to see this band. They're really great. It was Aerosmith. Maine is ME, right? So MA is Massachusetts. I used search, AI. MA is the abbreviation for Massachusetts. Also East Coast. Radio in the Nude, Boylston Street. So that's a street in Boston. I remember that. Yeah. So Final Cut Pro in 2026. Probably going to see 11.3. Look, they could call it Final Cut Pro 12. If it's a really big update, fingers crossed, if they added an audio mixer, if they added text-based editing, if they added better subtitles and captions and made a big update, they could call it Final Cut Pro 12. They really could. So, but I think 11.3 is really, I'm surprised there has been no minor Final Cut Pro update. It adds weight to the thought that the spring update will be big. Yes, but I'm still disappointed that there's been no bug fix. Look, you can't just have 6 months of nothing for Final Cut Pro. That's not a good way to do it, especially when Resolve is updated every other week or every 3 or 4 weeks. They have a new update with features. But you can't go 6 months because there's nothing to talk about. No new tutorials on YouTube. Nobody, it's just like dead zone. You create a dead zone when you don't have any kind of Final Cut Pro things to talk about. If you think going from September till March, let's just say the Creative Summit is in March, is okay with nothing in there, just a complete Final Cut Pro update vacuum? No, that's not good. You got to do something in between. Every 2 months or something, give us a bug fix, give us a little feature. A big update to spring on us, of course. Is there any specific person I can talk to about BRAW support for Final Cut Pro? Boy, I tell you, the people that want BRAW support, I feel for you. I don't use BRAW. I am 100% behind getting BRAW support in Final Cut Pro. It's really literally can happen at any time. I don't think it has to wait for an update to Final Cut Pro, but that could be incorrect. We might have to wait for an update, bug fix, or whatever. They announced it a year ago in November at the last Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, which was 2024. They said, oh, by the way, BRAW is now possible in Final Cut Pro. I have no idea why it's taken so long. Final Cut Pro has no equivalent. Every other NLE is track-based. Right. Well, but think of all the millions of people who edit on track-based NLEs, Gabe. Millions. Millions of people, editors, plenty of Hollywood films, Avid, Premiere, Blackmagic, they all edit on track-based, so they do a great job. There's some sophisticated professional editors that use track-based. It's just a matter of preference. Do you work for Adobe? If you knew my history, that makes me laugh. I have no love for Adobe, the company, because of their ransom subscription model. So, no, I don't work for Adobe. Everybody just keeps bouncing me around saying they have to do it and they have to do it. We don't know. I don't know about it. I just know that it was announced at the last Creative Summit over a year ago, 14 months ago, that it was possible. Now, I think Blackmagic has to do the work. I'm not positive that's the only thing that has to happen. Tracks make more sense for audio than video. Yes, I agree. I like tracks for audio. Logic Pro has tracks. I like tracks for audio. Something short and sweet, I don't mind. I don't mind. I mean, it works fine in Final Cut Pro. If I got 20 tracks of audio, I want tracks. If I'm doing it's different. Music is different because Final Cut's not really designed to do multi-track audio like Logic Pro is. So since 2024, it is really up to BMD to finally deliver a media extension integration. I think that's the case. That's what I've been told, that Blackmagic has to do the work, whatever. I'm sure there's some integration with Final Cut Pro team. And here's our friend Ben, he brings a little gem of truth. Final Cut Pro is the best NLE for people who love Final Cut Pro, period. There's no universal best NLE. There was. There's nothing wrong with track-based NLEs, but the suggestion above was that PC Corel video is the PC equivalent of Final Cut Pro. Well, yeah, I don't know PC Corel. Gotcha. Audio doesn't obscure like video when stacked. I use DaVinci because some of my projects don't work trackless. Sometimes trackless Final Cut Pro works better. Yes, I mean, I use Final Cut Pro. It's the first thing I go to, but I also use DaVinci Resolve and I use LumaFusion on my iPad. macOS 26 put in the latest needed step for external codec RAW support. You can actually get access to it when you install compressor on Tahoe. Very cool. Out. Nice chat. Well, come on back when you get a chance. Thank you for stopping in. If there is a single best NLE, we all use it. Yes. Absolutely. Here you see what you get with compressor on Tahoe. Blackmagic designers usually so quick with updates, so why are they not doing this? Literally refresh their page every day, single day since August when I bought BMD 6K. Obviously it's something. I mean, Blackmagic Design just added ProRes RAW to their cameras and to Resolve. So there's no, headbutting between Apple, the Final Cut Pro team, and the Blackmagic team because they work together all the time. I don't know, but I'm expecting it all the time. I waited 13 and a half years for the scrolling timeline to be realized. Longer than that. I mean, it was in Final Cut Pro 5, I was looking for a scrolling timeline. Not even 10.5, but 5. So, anyway, 2026 is going to be a good year for Final Cut Pro. I have complete faith. I always do, though, don't I? Flexibility in work makes things go smoother, faster, better. Should I ever consider working with editing professionally? I would also learn DaVinci, but as I do love my work as a teacher, I am more than satisfied with what I can do in Final Cut Pro. Yes. The NLE war itself is silly. Use whatever tool you feel is best suited for the task at hand. Absolutely. Now, this is the best advice. Final Cut Pro and Resolve work very well together. Learn and use both. So when I do text-based editing, it's definitely in DaVinci Resolve. But recently, when you do captions, so if I take a 5-minute clip and I do text-based editing in Resolve, and then I do the convert audio transcription and convert to captions, you always have to edit those. I don't care what I've never seen a product that gets the captions 100% right. So, and unless I could be wrong, but I can't figure out a way in DaVinci Resolve to, when I'm editing the caption, I have to click on the caption in the timeline and go all the way up to the inspector to change it, to modify it. Whether it's changing the font, the color, whatever, or just mainly just changing the text. I can change the entire track. I can change the font in the entire track. I can change the color in the entire track by selecting the track in the timeline and go up to the inspector, and then you can change everything. But if I want to correct spelling or I want to correct timing, text, I have to click in the timeline and go all the way up to the inspector to change it, change one caption. Then I'm back down to the timeline, click on another one, go all the way up to the inspector to change it. In Final Cut Pro, you do it right in the timeline. Final Cut Pro, it's either click or double click the caption, and the text editor expands right there. And then you can, I think, use the left and right arrow key to go to the next one, and then it'll expand, expand, expand. So editing captions is much faster in Final Cut Pro. So now, even if I do transcriptions in DaVinci Resolve, which is very fast, now I'm bringing those for captions back into Final Cut because it's much quicker to edit. And you always have to edit. Always. You just don't get a 100% caption. Excuse me. Look at this. These are the two kitty cats, the Christmas kitty cat. They have their Christmas tree right there. They have their front window. That's a Miss Amanda Jones that's getting up right now. That's Miss Amanda Jones. She likes to sit on the red thing there for the tree. And then Lucy Jones, Lucy, is the one that's sleeping on the futon. That's their own futon they have in the front window. Oh, there it is. Scratching her ear. Blackmagic Design does high-quality training for free online. Don't see anyone else doing that either. And in the multiple LA languages, Apple went in the opposite direction. The DaVinci Resolve is second to none for training. They have phenomenal PDFs. I just do Resolve. A little bit maybe in Fairlight to learn some things. They have tutorials. They have, every year they go through a series. You can attend these tutorials, these sessions live, get certified, whatever, for DaVinci. The best training beyond just a manual. Final Cut Pro's got a very good manual, but that's where it ends. They don't do videos. They did one video a year and a half ago promoting Final Cut Pro. Nothing since then. We had a 11.2 in September. It was a very limited feature update, it was all about ProRes RAW. Well, ProRes RAW doesn't affect 5 or 6 million editors. It affects a small portion. So the update was welcome by me because I have an iPhone 17 Pro Max, but the vast majority of editors, that didn't really affect them. So it wasn't a big update for the vast majority of Final Cut Pro editors. So you got one in September, and you're not going to do another major update till March. That leaves a chunk of 6 months with nothing to talk about as far as Final Cut Pro goes. Over 6 months, because 11.2 was only for ProRes RAW for the most part. You're leaving a vacuum there. Nobody's doing tutorials on YouTube about Final Cut Pro. They've already done them. They did them back in 11.1, back in March, or 11 from a year ago. But nobody's doing tutorials from 11.2 because there's really, except for ProRes RAW, which I appreciate. But that's not a big feature update for the vast majority. You can't just ignore the Final Cut Pro community for 6 months. You create this enormous vacuum of Final Cut Pro enthusiasm, people doing videos on YouTube, etc. That's not the right way to do it. If you want to go pro and find work, learn Adobe and Avid, overwhelmingly more in demand for professional job listings. I've seen researching this for 5 years now. Final Cut Pro can do 90% of what other NLEs can. It just takes time to master it. Well, it takes time to master any of the NLEs, I would say. Don't get me wrong, I love Final Cut Pro, use it, but I don't hesitate to use other tools if they help me, absolutely. Hey, Richard, do you use third-party lenses for shooting with iPhones? Years ago, I tried 2 brands, hated them, wondering if they've improved. So I bought into the Moment lens system years ago, and I bought all their lenses. The problem was, every year, you have to buy a new case for the phone in order for the lenses to screw on. I stopped doing that years ago. I said, I'm not going to buy a new case every year for a new phone. So the only lens I really, really like is anamorphic. Anamorphic lens. That's the one I really like. I like shooting a wide frame. So I researched before I bought anything what works with the iPhone 17 Pro Max, and I went with the BEASTGRIP cage because the BEASTGRIP cage can use any phone. Android, it can use any iPhone. It's not a case-specific cage. It's much bigger, and you just put your phone in there, and then you adjust the lens to fit the phone horizontally and vertically. So I got that cage, and I got their anamorphic 1.55. They have 2 lenses, 1.33, 1.55. I got the 1.55 specifically to shoot anamorphically on a 4:3 open gate ProRes image. So I shoot in ProRes RAW, 4:3 aspect, open gate, uses a full frame, and the BEASTGRIP anamorphic lens optically squeezes the image into that 4:3. It's 4,200 pixels wide, but the optically, the BEASTGRIP lens, anamorphic 155, squeezes the image into that 4:3 frame, and when you play it back in QuickTime, it's 6,500 pixels wide. 6,500 by like 3,200 or something tall. So it's almost a 2-to-1 aspect ratio, but it's not, it's squeezing it into ProRes RAW 4:3 frame. And I really, really like that. That's the only one I'm getting right now. I don't need any other ones. The lenses on the iPhone are pretty darn good. Do you feel like 2026 is a pivotal year for Final Cut Pro? So, pivotal. I think people that are going to stick with Final Cut Pro, for the most part, are going to stick with Final Cut Pro. I'm one of those people. I'm not planning on, well, people say I'm going to jump over to DaVinci. Well, if you jump to DaVinci, you don't have to stop using Final Cut Pro. You already paid for it. So there's no downside into keeping both. Use one for one, whatever you need them for. So I use Final Cut Pro primarily because I've been working with it for over 20 years. And I use DaVinci Resolve for some things, and I like DaVinci. It's not a problem for me to use it. Tracks don't bother me. Tracks don't bother me. I like the track list better, but I certainly could learn to use DaVinci Resolve as my primary if it came to that. I don't think so. So I think it's going to be a pivotal year. Let's hope so. This would be great. Pivotal year. the Final Cut Pro Creator Summit, the spring of 2026, and they announce Final Cut Pro 12 with a roles-based mixer, with text-based editing, with a whole bunch of the things we've been asking for. That would be great. Now, if 11.3 has that stuff, that's fine. But I'm saying if the update's big enough, they might very well jump to 12. Because they went from 10.8 to 12 and to 10.8 to 11 in 6 months. 10.8 came out in June. In November, they switched to Final Cut Pro 11. So that was 6 months to go from 10.8 to Final Cut Pro 11. If the update at the Creative Summit 2026 is big enough, it very well could be Final Cut Pro 12 or Final Cut Pro 11.3. But I'm just saying, do I think it's going to be a pivotal year? I hope it's going to be a pivotal year. I do that all the time. Last year was not a pivotal year. 2025 was like, okay, 11.1 was a nice update, some features. 11.2 was a feature update that had limited use. It was all about ProRes RAW, which all the editors don't shoot in ProRes RAW, so it didn't affect most of them. So, and they canceled the Creative Summit for 2025. They canceled it. Now, they may say, well, we postponed it. No, you canceled it. There was no summit in 2025, and there's been a summit every year since 2015. There was no summit in 2025 because it was canceled. Now, in 2026, it's picking back up again in the spring. And I understand why. Listen, can you imagine having a Final Cut Pro Creative Summit and the only update was 11.2? That wouldn't fly. That is not, 11.2 was not a big enough update to support a Final Cut Pro Creative Summit. It just wasn't. So let's hope. I'm going to say March. I don't know yet. We'll find out hopefully this week. It could be because the FMC is busy in April and FMC is busy in May. They have two of their big events. One in Europe, one is NAB. Let's say March. I think we're going to have the summit in March. It's just time-wise, it works out. A big wish for the next version of Final Cut Pro is the ability to quickly edit captions, not a caption at a time, but in the form of a transcript. Yes, that would be great. And the ability to export that transcript as a PDF. Yes, I really don't think that they're done with captions in Final Cut Pro. They introduced them in 11. Is that when they introduced them, or was it before that? 11, I think. They introduced captions. Maybe it was 10.8. I don't remember. They need more work. It's a very rudimentary caption system at this point. So absolutely it needs more work, Gabe. Cross-generation media have been fiddling around with the new Nikon ZR recording in Red RAW 6K, and performance is better in Final Cut Pro than Resolve 20.3 on an M1 Pro. That's interesting. Isn't there a red plugin or something that they did for Final Cut Pro? I think there is. Apple doesn't need to provide video training because the online community covers that in spades, but they also do that for Resolve. There's tons of video on YouTube for Resolve, but Blackmagic still goes above and beyond and does excellent video training for all of their different products. Final Cut Pro they've never done video training, not for 10. They did a promo in 2024. Bill Davis edited that, which was a shock because usually they don't promote Final Cut at all. But there's plenty of, so where's been the video tutorials, the community covering Final Cut Pro in the last 3 months? It's non-existent. Nobody is doing video tutorials for Final Cut Pro other than a little niche thing here or a little niche thing there. But as far as Final Cut Pro itself and features in Final Cut Pro, they've all been done since Final Cut Pro 11 and a little bit in 11.1. Whenever there's a significant update with new features in Final Cut, there'll be 6 to 12 different people covering all of the new features on YouTube. It's been vacant on YouTube for anything new. There's been a couple of small little niche things that have popped up, but nothing like when there's new features. This is what I'm talking about. The fact that they don't update Final Cut Pro, it creates this giant void of Final Cut Pro promotion and tutorials, etc. They shouldn't let 6 months go between one update and the next, especially when this one, 11.2, was not that big. So you're really going back to 11.1, and that was better. It had more features for more people. So that's a year between significant feature updates in Final Cut. That's too long. That is too long. Now, are your hands tied? I don't know. Resources? You don't have the resources? I don't know. But it's just too long. 6 months is too long. A year is way too long. Just because people forget about it, people jump onto other platforms. So, I mean, I'm sticking around. I'm going to still edit Final Cut Pro. I know it plenty well enough. Plenty well enough. Cheers. Cheers, everybody. I hope you had great holidays. Have you compared low light recording on your iPhone 17 Pro Max to your 16 Pro Max? Yes. Recording Christmas, marketing, hamburger, night surprise, a little noise. Yes. The 17 is better than the 16 in low light, but I still use my Lumix S5 Mark IIX for anything that's critical in low light. It's a full frame camera. It's I use fast lenses. It's superior. As you would expect, it's a full frame camera. It's going to be better than an iPhone. But the iPhone is great for like 90% of what I do. 95%. It shoots okay in some low light. It does a good job. And the 17 is definitely better than the 16, absolutely. I'm starting to lean towards exporting sequences using third-party filters as ProRes 4444 for use on platforms without them. DaVinci YouTube training videos are as abundant as Final Cut Pro. Apple and Blackmagic Design simply go in different directions. Well, as we've talked about before, Blackmagic Design, their entire company is about video production. Everything is about video production. It's about cameras. It's about switchers. It's about software. It's about free DaVinci Resolve, free iPhone Blackmagic camera apps. The entire company is about video production. Apple video production is this big. Maybe this big. But Apple is about this. The iPhone primarily, and then Macintoshes, and then Mac Minis. But DaVinci Resolve, their entire company is about video production. Apple is this big. What does that mean? I mean, Apple's a giant company, so this big is pretty big, but not the entire company. It's not about video production. It would be nice if Final Cut Pro could find foreign filters and do it for me. So one of the things I'd like to see in Final Cut Pro, and I'm not sure why it hasn't been incorporated yet, why can't there be a tab, like maybe in the effects tab, there's a special tab for filters, transitions, titles, effects that you don't own, but you can try out a trial inside of Final Cut. And if you like it, you can click on it and go to a place and buy it right there within Final Cut Pro. I'm not sure why that's not there yet, but I'd like to see that. Hoverboard Archives, Disney Imagineering. The only thing I did after having done my corrections in Final Cut Pro was the exporter to Topaz Video AI 7 and have it remove additional noise from the video. The results surprisingly clean. I use that. I used to use Topaz. Now I use, what am I using now? AIRTY Video Enhancer 4. I use that now instead of the other one. I might suggest using Neat Video instead for noise reduction, as you can apply that right inside Final Cut. Then to export first. But doesn't that tie up Final Cut? I heard Neat is very processor. All of them are. AIRT is very intensive. It always kicks my fans on when I start processing. The good thing about AIRT and the other one is you can upscale while you're denoising. If you want to upscale from HD to 4K, you can do that at the same time that you're denoising. That's why I like that. Plus, I can run that outside of Final Cut. I don't have to tie up Final Cut resources doing that. I can do it over here, let it do its thing, and I can edit in Final Cut without hogging resources. Love Topaz. Nothing beats it for resizing and cleanup. Big fan. I used to be, but now I'm using AIRT. I think Topaz is probably a little better, but I didn't like the new subscription models they have. Recently exported a 5 to 4.1 animated sequence to animated GIF. 4 seconds, took only 4 hours. Took only 4 seconds, took 4 hours? Yikes. Fake Final Cut Pro Spring Update headlines. Final Cut Pro goes to version 27, adds new roles, colors, and enhanced 3D text. FCP community yawns. So we don't want it to yawn. Could it go to 27 instead of 11.3 or 12? I guess. Are any of their apps doing that same thing that Mac OS is doing? Are they using the 27 thing, number, naming? I don't know, to be honest with you. No, I'm expecting a roles-based audio mixer, and I'm expecting text-based editing, improved captions, BRAW support, whatever the heck's going on there. I would expect that to happen. Those would be big things. Still not enough. Whatever else, other surprises the team has for us. And when we get that update, that'll keep us going for another month or 2 months, you know, with tutorials and stuff. And where's transcribe to captions in other languages other than English? It's been a long while. Project manager and Reddit told me in a DM, we are looking into that, of course, very cryptic. Right. They're looking at everything, probably. What are the chances it's pushed back to November? 0. The Final Cut Pro community, including me, would be completely intolerant of them pushing it back to November. Let's have this spring one, see how it works out. Personally, I like November better so far. Let's do the spring one, but it could be 18 months between creative summits. If they don't do another one in the spring of 2027, that means they could do one in the back to November of 2027, which would be 18 months. No, don't even say that. Push back to November. They better not. I have an old friend in New Orleans who's built a sizable video business about 15 years now. He and his editors are all trained to use Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, Media Composer. Got to be flexible to make money. Absolutely. I've sent another detailed email to BMD. Let's see if we finally get a solid answer, just the usual. BRAW BRAW toolbox exists response. That's not native. You got to have it native. Feels like we've been talking about captions like 3 or 4 years. I talked about a scrolling timeline for 13 and a half years. 3 to 4 years would have been great. I was pressing for a scrolling timeline. There's also a long time pressing for dupe detection. Years of pressing for dupe detection. We finally got that. We have indeed. On YouTube, I've noticed lately there's a healthy number of Final Cut Pro tutorial makers who are posting videos complaining of Final Cut Pro stagnating. Crossing fingers that 2026 is the year Apple finally shows us a whole lot of love. Well, I have to say, the 2024 Creative Summit was absolutely the best one. It was superb in all kinds of ways. So we're always hoping. When it comes to Final Cut Pro, I'm the eternal optimist. But right now, my expectations are like mid-level. They're not down here low because 2024 was so cool and really cool. They're up here mid-level, so I expect a good, solid mid-level update. If they do a good, solid update up here and make it Final Cut Pro 27 or Final Cut Pro 12 with a lot of good, solid features, then we know what they've been working on. But it's still frustrating when we don't have updates 6 months or a year between good, solid feature updates. Fake update 2. Apple buys Blackmagic, still no BRAW in Final Cut Pro. Listen, the Final Cut Pro team announced BRAW support November 2024. Is possible. So what's the holdup? I don't know. I've noticed that as well, Ben, and it's depressing. It's not unjustified. You're talking about the Final Cut Pro people that do tutorials talking about how it needs to be updated more often. There are so many things the team could do, streamline workflows and incorporate more modern features. Absolutely. You can apply neat video and disable processing until you're ready to export. Easy peasy. Yeah. Does a neat video upscale? Because when I looked at it a year or so ago, it doesn't upscale. It only gives you the same resolution that you put in. I use these AI cleanup apps to upscale and clean up. And there's all kind of choices. So unless neat videos change, it didn't used to upscale, and I have to have upscaling. That's 4 hours of export. Oh, I thought you meant it took 4 hours of exporting a 4-second video. I'm told by my inside source that apps not using it yet, but the OSs do. I think it's the only OS naming convention, Mac OS, iPad OS. Yes, that's what I thought. I didn't think that like Safari and Notes and all that does it. Eric, that's hilarious. That was funny. Still no BRAW in Final Cut Pro. It's so, isn't it bizarre? Blackmagic comes out with ProRes RAW support, and you would have thought at the same time, let's do BRAW support in Final Cut Pro. There's no headbutting there, obviously. Otherwise, Blackmagic would not have had ProRes RAW. I finally turned on the scrolling timeline on my system. I agree it's better. I don't use it 100% of the time, but I use it 90% of the time. If it's a short little video, 2 or 3 minutes, it's not that big a deal. But the zooming in Final Cut Pro is just really, really ancient. It's really bad. I mean, Logic Pro, I can set and save 3 different recallable zoom levels. So I can zoom in where I like it, and I can do a keyboard shortcut to save that as number 1. I can zoom in here, save that as number 2, and I can zoom in there and save that as 3. So I can instantly go back to any of those 3 zoom levels with keyboard shortcuts. That's what Final Cut Pro needs. DaVinci Resolve. Shift-Z does the whole timeline, and Shift-Z again goes back to the zoom level you were before. Brilliant. I love that. So you can go expand the whole timeline into the time, and then the Shift-Z again, the same keyboard shortcut, goes back to the zoom level you were before you pressed Shift-Z. Final Cut Pro is like, oh, I got to use the Z key. I got a Command plus, Command minus. Oh, come on. Give us recallable zoom levels in the timeline. Never thought about, never asked for a scrolling timeline, but they implemented it so well I have not turned it off since the day it was released. Right. 4 hours includes stitching the frames together in Photoshop and isolating the changes between frames. Very, very cool. Let's see what those cats are doing. Here we go. Sleeping. They are sleeping. The scallywags. Look at them. Oh, there's only one there. Only Lucy. I don't know where Amanda Jones is. I don't see her. She's not there. She is not there. I've been using AI to generate backgrounds, explainer graphics, and B-roll. Love to do that inside Final Cut Pro like other NLEs are now starting to do. I think there's some AI stuff coming like that. I think so. Yeah, Neat Video does not upscale. I didn't think it did. But in my experience, it does the best noise reduction. Okay, could be. But I do a lot of upscaling standard def. And I do a lot of cleaning up of standard def frames, and I have to upscale. I just double the resolution. So Neat Video wouldn't do it for me there. It was a bridge pan from STTAS. I'm not sure what that's referring to. I use Neat also, pay once and get forever updates, great value. They don't charge you for a major update. I thought people were complaining that they did. And one more thing, introducing Final Cut Pro 26, it would be 27 because they go a year ahead. It would go ahead. I use scrolling timeline 10% of the time. I never wanted it originally, but that 10% I'm using it, it's handy, and I like to have multiple zoom level shortcuts like you described. Not only keyboard shortcuts, but you know that space on top of the timeline that's completely blank in Final Cut Pro? Give me the ability to customize and put shortcut icons in there. So I can do 1, 2, 3 zoom levels, and I can just click, click, click. That space hasn't been used for 14 years. It's completely blank. Give me the ability to put some custom icons in there that I want. Custom that the user wants. You're not using that space. It's just completely blank. Avid, Adobe, run Mac, and Windows BMD, run Mac, Windows, Linux, so why Apple Final Cut Pro Mac only? It is so hard to frequent updates. You mean Mac only? Well, it's not going to be a PC version. You still have wrapped GIFs? No, those are just decorations for the tree. We already took care of our GIFs. We got our GIFs back in November, some of them. Mine are sleeping too. Wish I could train them to do laundry, but it doesn't work. Something about lacking opposing thumbs. Star Trek, the animated series. That's what you're working on. Fantastic. We got a lot of people watching today. Must be everybody's in between Christmas and New Year's. Yeah, single-click buttons for switching workspaces would be amazing, much faster than menu, submenu, select, absolutely. But there's other things. Yeah, I mean, that space is there, right? It's blank. They have a few icons all the way over on the right, couple. They have whatever they have, scrolling timeline one, and they have a couple of other ones all the way on the right. And then you got, is there anything on the left? Well, it depends on what you're doing, but one of the things that really drives me crazy is when I expand in Final Cut Pro to just the viewer above the timeline, so it's just the viewer, right? The controls are all the way over to the left. The controls for the viewer are all the way over to the left, and my video is in the middle. I want the controls to stay with the video. Under the video, leave my controls with the video. Don't make them go all the way over to the left, and I have to lose my attention from looking at the screen and look over here to see where the controls are. When I just have the viewer up, leave the controls under the video. It's just some fun work to kill time. I'm comfortable with some more useful for customization buttons as long as they don't turn the interface into After Effects. Well, the thing is, it's your choice what you want it to do. Do you have to use the icons in the interface? No, you don't have to. Just like in Logic Pro, there's an advanced menu. You turn on these advanced features. So the fact that it's available, I remember when I wanted the scrolling timeline, and people would say, I don't want the scrolling timeline. I don't want this. Bunch of old fogies. You don't have to use it. Don't turn it on if you don't want to use it. But for those of us who want it, we want it. And they finally, we were right. They finally did it. Final GIF has all the bridge console lights flashing in concert, gotcha. I'm just saying keep it clean, not super cluttered the way Adobe does. But give me the choice. What I consider a clean interface, I mean, Logic is clean, but it has lots of buttons in the top window. You can completely customize it. Give me the choice. I don't want Apple to dictate for everybody. Everybody has to have this clean interface. No. Give me the choice. I want the choice. I want the ability to have better keyframe editor. And I can drop it down and do my keyframe editing and then close it back up. There's lots of things that I would like to have. Give me the choice. It doesn't turn them all on or you don't have any of them. You can turn on the ones that you want. Customization. As long as Final Cut Pro 7 doesn't come with a whole new GUI just designed from scratch again. Yeah, I talked to Philip about, the fact that the code in Final Cut Pro is 13 and a half years old, 14 years old. He said they've already converted some of it to Swift. They've already been converting it over the years to Swift. So they don't have to start from scratch. Yes, keyframe. I mean, wouldn't you love to have the motion keyframe editor in Final Cut Pro? Now, here's the thing. The motion keyframe editor can get very complex. There's a lot of selections you can turn on and off, but it doesn't have to be. You can turn on what you want. You can turn on things that you want and keep everything else off. But I would love that keyframe editor or something like it in Final Cut Pro. 14 years and still we have an Etch-a-Sketch for keyframe editor in Final Cut. As far as I remember, Final Cut 4 to 7 also had a simplified advanced option you could choose between depending on what you wanted to do in Final Cut Pro. I don't remember that, but that you could be what? Final Cut Pro keyframes drive me nuts. Yeah, they've been doing that for 14 years for me. Do I have, oh, here we go. Look, I'm not supposed to show you this. I probably shouldn't show you this, but this is one of the new features for Final Cut Pro. It's a hardware keyframe editor. Here it is. It's a hardware keyframe editor for Final Cut Pro. It's coming in Final Cut Pro 11.3. This is it. This is what it's like editing keyframes in Final Cut Pro now. This is a hardware controller for Final Cut. I've been keeping that there for just that purpose. I stopped attempting to keyframe in Final Cut years ago. I just go to Motion, but for many things, it would be so much easier if I could stay in Final Cut and keyframe with little finesse. Yes, give us, just like Motion, it has a drop-down keyframe editor, right? You open it up and it drops down below the viewer because you're not using the timeline. Everybody liked that. I wasn't supposed to show you that. Shh, don't tell anybody. The return of real dials, yes. You ever try to do a diagonal in the, for those of you old enough to remember the Etch-a-Sketch, trying to do a diagonal, it's left, right, left, right, left, right. It's like a little stair-stepping thing. I was referring, once Final Cut Pro run only on Apple, to use their OSs, it should be used to update Blackmagic Design to do it on 3 different OSs. Right. I gotcha. I would love for Final Cut Pro to add more color grading options and a nice curve RGB, and love to have Final Cut fix the stacking of color layers like wheels and curves instead of adding it to the bottom, add it to the top. Yeah, I know what you mean. One of the other things is, if I go to add an effect to a clip in the timeline, and that clip already has that effect, a little pop-up saying, hey, you already have that effect. Do you want to add this a second time, a second version of this? And if it does add a second version of an effect, the two effects are distinguished from one another in the inspector. Colors or something. Automatically, they're distinguished one or the other. One is plain, one's got an orange or green color to it. Because sometimes I add an effect and I go back and I say, I already added that effect. It's got 2 versions of it now. And I can go back and, is the top one the last one I did? I presume. And the bottom one is the original one? That's what I presume, but a way to distinguish that. Keyframing is a very strong argument for reintroducing round tripping in Final Cut Motion. Just put a simplified version of Motion's keyframe editor in Final Cut Pro. Yes. I desperately miss Send to Motion as well, while I use rigging and publishing almost every day. That's fantastic. I'll have to hit you up for some ideas about using Motion, because I'm already overextended with stuff that I'm doing. I don't have time to learn Motion. Send to Motion, rigging just goes from Motion to Final Cut Pro, not Final Cut Pro to Motion. So in classic Final Cut Pro, for those of you that don't know, you create a Motion project. You take the Motion project and you drop it in a Final Cut Pro timeline. The project, it's a Motion project just like a clip in the Final Cut Pro timeline. Now, right-click on that clip and say Open in Motion. It opens in Motion, and you make your changes, and then you save it, and it updates in the Final Cut Pro timeline. It's a fantastic way of working with Motion. I really, really, really like that. Reach out anytime, Richard. Happy to help. I got some ideas about some smallish plugins I'd like to see that I don't have time to get involved in Motion, that I'll discuss with you and see what you think. I often want to do an animation composite that Motion would easily do easily that Final Cut Pro won't easily do. Making a template to do that isn't just not realistic in a lot of situations. Yeah, you got to make the templates and all that. So the motion is very powerful. The times that I've been into it, if I have to change a title or something that exists, then I can open in motion and change the parameters I want, and then I'll save it. And I've saved a few things. I just don't have time anymore. Logic and Final Cut Pro. I mean, for example, I'm going to put out a new Final Cut Pro radio podcast before the end of the year, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I'm waiting for the summit news. I'm waiting for the summit news before I do the podcast. So that's what I'm waiting on. So if they don't give the summit by like Tuesday, I'm not going to get the final. I'll put it out anyway. I'll get one out. I'll start editing. It's just audio only. I want to get one out for the end of the year, so we have one. %, Ben. One cat in the Christmas tree cat room. This is our front room. They can watch out that window and squirrels go by or one of the outdoor cats go by and there's traffic a little further out. They like watching that, but they sleep during the day a lot of times. They sleep in the other room at nighttime. So what are you going to do? I presume FMC is going to make their announcement Monday. Monday would be great. Tuesday would be okay. Wednesday would be horrible. New Year's Eve, that would be a terrible time to do an update. And if you change it to January, it's just going to be, we don't even care anymore. You guys are just messing with us. There was a Pages update once that stripped it down to bare bones features. There was enough backlash that the next update threw the advanced features back. Go figure. Yeah, they've done that a few times. Apple has. Motion is super powerful, but almost no one knows about it. The team should just merge Motion to Final Cut Pro, make it a page or a tab, absolutely. And it would appear to be the biggest update in Final Cut. I agree 100%. Motion and Logic as tabs in Final Cut would be phenomenal. Phenomenal. Got to get to work. Thanks for the fun Saturday mornings, y'all. Have a good day. Happy New Year to everyone. Happy New Year to you, Ben. I hope I see you this year, maybe at the summit. Here goes Eric. Fake headline number 3. Apple releases Final Cut Pro 12 with wealth of new features, bundles it with Final Cut for iPad and new iPhone Final Cut Pro for subscription. Still no BRAW. That's no BRAW. Motion Final Cut Pro compressor scaled down DAW based on Logic and tabs. So, yeah, we don't need a full scale recording studio in Final Cut Pro. That can stay in Logic, but some of the other features, yes. So the Final Cut Pro team knows, because they've been told multiple times at the Creative Summits, the last 2, no subscriptions for Final Cut Pro. Don't even think about it unless you do a subscription and the option to buy it outright. Don't even think about that. Now, I don't care about paying for a major update to Final Cut Pro. If you want to charge me $100 on my perpetual license, hey, we got this giant update coming for Final Cut Pro. It's going to be $99 for existing users. New users can buy it for the normal $299. It'll be included. That would be fine. I don't care. I don't mind supporting the Final Cut Pro team financially. No problem. Not through subscription. Not through a subscription. Absolutely not. They know about that. They know they would get nothing but backlash. I don't know for a fact. I think perhaps They have limited resources for Final Cut Pro, and that might be one of the problems. One of the issues why they don't have more updates more often. But I know that they've said that we know Final Cut Pro the best. We know what can be updated and when it can be updated. They told us that directly, so that's fine. That is completely fine. So are we going to have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday FMC? You have to have the information. We need the date. Number one, if you don't give us a date, you're not giving us anything. If you don't give us a date, why even bother with an update about the Creative Summit? We don't care about the schedule. Okay? The schedule can change. It's fluid. It can change. We need the date. We need the date and location if it's going to be back at the Juniper. That information is of utmost importance to Final Cut Pro users. The schedule is fluid. Things can change. They do change sometimes right up to the Creative Summit itself. So we need the date, number one, and the location is going to be in Cupertino, according to your website, which is to be expected. But if the hotel is back Juniper, that'd be great. Well, I like the Juniper. I remain cautiously optimistic about the next major version of Final Cut Pro. Here's where I am, Gabe, right in the middle. I'm right in the middle. My confidence is like medium. I'd love for it to go way up. I don't want it to go way down. That was 2019. That was my expectations went way down after that. Creator Studio, a new Final Cut Pro bundle. We'll see. Are they working on something big? Well, we're always hoping that, aren't we? We're always hoping that they're working on something big. Who the heck knows? But we're all still here. As dedicated Final Cut Pro users, we're all still here. I do like coffee. In case anybody doesn't know, I do like coffee. As a matter of fact, I don't have that in there. I don't have that in there. So this is really cool. We're coming to the end of 2025. 2026, just around the corner. We have 3 days next week that we can get the news about the Creative Summit. I expect it'll come out this week. I expect Monday would be great. Tuesday would be better. I mean, Tuesday would be great. Wednesday would be horrible. Everybody's doing New Year's Eve stuff at that point. I don't go out. We went out to Christmas. There's a place in Baltimore we went out to last Sunday, saw 3 bands, and then went to the 34th Street in Hamden. Maybe we suffer from Stockholm Syndrome. Now, you say that, but there was a tutorial at one of the Creative Summits, not a tutorial, but talked about Final Cut Pro Mac users suffering some Stockholm Syndrome. Yes, there was. 2016, I think. 2016, the Creative Summit, when LumaFusion they rented a place across the street. Oh, that was NAB. Sorry, that was NAB. That wasn't a Creative Summit. Sorry. Erase that. Maybe. Well, the thing is, look, a lot of us have been using Final Cut Pro since the classic days. So that was like 1999, 2000. So that's 25 years of using Final Cut Pro. I know it pretty well. Final Cut Pro 10, I know it pretty well. I've learned DaVinci Resolve. I learned LumaFusion. I know Logic Pro as well. Logic Pro is a great, great app for editing audio. I just love it. Here's what my setup for Logic Pro. I have the top window, sequence window, with one zoom level of the track that I'm working on. And below that, I have another window. It's called the audio editor, that I have a different zoom level. So I have one zoom level, and the audio editor is zoomed in on the track. The top one is zoomed way out, so I can see almost the entire thing. And both of them scroll. Both those windows scroll in Logic Pro with different zoom levels, so they stay synced up. I love that. I can select a range of clips and color code them with a keyboard shortcut. So just suppose I'm talking to somebody in a radio podcast in Final Cut Pro Radio, and all these clips are Sam. Okay, I color code all these clips as blue. And then the next group of clips is Serena Catania. So I take all her clips and I instantly color code them. I don't have to worry about going through roles and changing roles and this and that. No, I just select the clips and color code them. Plain and simple. We are just loyal to a fault, but Final Cut Pro is very good. No, it is very good. I mean, it's very fluid. It's fun to edit with. It's very fast, but it is missing a lot of things. A good keyframe editor, the ability to expand a compound clip directly in the timeline, captioning, better captions, parameters, editing text, roll space audio mixer. We would do workarounds with that stuff, but I still like it. I love Final Cut Pro, using it on every job, but because I love it and use it every day, I'm intimately familiar with this particular set of flaws and just don't want to see it improve to benefit everyone. And just want to see it improve to benefit everyone. Kind of like the cut page in Resolve. I use that cut page sometime, but usually I just use the edit page. I don't spend that much time learning Resolve. I don't have the desire to. So, what else is going on? Anything else going on in the world? For Christmas, I got myself the BEASTGRIP Pro cage and an anamorphic lens that lets me shoot anamorphically ProRes RAW open gate, which is fantastic because it stretches out to a 2:1 aspect ratio, and it's ProRes RAW, and I really, really like that. I really like that. That's my favorite format for most things. 2:1 aspect ratio frames versus 16:9. Nope, still only one cat. Still only one cat. So what's everybody doing for New Year's besides wishing for a new Final Cut Pro update? We've been talking a lot about Final Cut Pro, but when Final Cut Pro jumped from 10 to version 11, Motion stayed at V5. I wonder if Motion is getting a decent update as well. I don't think so. Motion's $49. After 14 years, at some point they could go to a brand new version of Motion. Absolutely. Repackaging the 2025 predictions episode as a 2026 predictions. Absolutely. Yes. It is hard to win trust. Apple Final Cut Pro team should pay more attention to us. Of course they should. Of course they should. Absolutely should. Do you think they don't? Do you think they don't? I think they do. I don't think they pay enough attention. That's absolutely not. Absolutely not. So let's... That's the wrong ringer. Wait, where in the heck's the other ringer? Here we go. I always get this wrong. Hello. Wrong side. Here we go. Yeah, we're live. We're live on... Yeah, I won't say anything. Don't worry. Oh, you're calling to wish all the listeners, the watchers on YouTube and Facebook and X, happy holidays and happy New Year. Merry Christmas is already over. So you're wishing us the best. Happy New Year's. Yes, we wish the same to you. I won't say who this is. Don't worry, I won't say who this is. And we're waiting to hear about the Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, and we want the next update to Final Cut Pro to be humongous. I want you to blow us out of the water with a great Final Cut Pro update, whether it's 11.3. Oh, it's going to be 12? You're kidding. I just guessed that. Well, you haven't made your mind up yet. It might be 11.3 and it might be 12. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Well, the thousands of people that have watched these episodes over the last year, wish everybody at Apple, the Final Cut Pro team, the Pro Apps team, the happiest New Year ever. But please return that back to us with a great feature update to Final Cut Pro. Is that right? Huh. Well, that's certainly interesting. I won't say anything. I understand you're talking to me in confidence. I completely understand that. I won't say who this is. Everybody's watching. We're watching live. They don't know. They have no idea who this is. They have no idea who this is. Okay. All right. Happy New Year to you, the Final Cut Pro Apps team, and everybody at Apple that cares about Final Cut Pro. We certainly do. We certainly do. All right. Sounds good. I'll talk to you later, Tim. Just curious, are you using a boom mic? Your audio sounds crisp and clean. My mic is right here. I'll pull it up for you so you can see it. It's right here. Oops, there we go. Here's my mic. It's a Neumann TLM 103. It's just down below, but when I look toward the screen, the audio is going right into the capsule. It's about 8 inches away. So the way they drop Final Cut Pro Classic and Aperture, the hard way, don't do it again, Apple. That would be devastating to you. No, that you don't want it. They wouldn't want to do that. It'd be more devastating to us. Of course it would. And I know Buddy says give a response to his application. That's over for Apple. I think we're safe, though. The team is all in on the current Pro Apps. Yes, they are. They are indeed. Just trying to see. We finally got, after years, we got a lot of people watching over on the X platform, which is really, really cool. All right, everyone. The happiest New Year to each and every one of you. And if FMC announces, let me rephrase that. When FMC announces the information about the Creative Summit on Monday, Tuesday this week, we'll come back and do a live broadcast to discuss what they told us, just because I'll be available. I'm available to do that, so that's what we will do. Thanks for a great show as always. Happy New Year all, absolutely. Each and every one of you. By the way, let's do this. Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for tuning in all this time. We're going to start I think we start year 4 in 2026. I think I started it somewhere close to January. I have to go back and check. But anyway, we have hundreds and hundreds of shows. By the way, my YouTube channel has reached over 700,000 views on my YouTube channel. I have over 1,000 videos, and it's reached over 700,000 views. So we're on the way to 800,000 views. We definitely will reach that next year if all goes as planned. On our way to 1 million views, which is phenomenal. Which is phenomenal. Everyone who attends the summit should buy Richard a cup of coffee, not a cup from each of us. We'll pitch in and buy you 1 cup. There you go. You guys can all pitch in and buy 1 cup over at buymeacoffee.com/Richard Taylor. Because what I do is I'll come over there the day before, and we'll be broadcasting some stuff live. The expo night will be broadcast live, but we'll also do some other things. And I usually broadcast at night. And in the morning when I get up, once I'm well rested, I get up, I'm an early riser, so I'll get up early in the morning and we'll do a broadcast from the hotel room, like we always do. But first, I got to know when it is. And second, I got to know what, I guess it's going to be, when it is most important. Secondarily, it's going to be in Cupertino. They've already said that. Secondarily, is it back at the Juniper? That'll be fine. That'll be fine. You're the best. You are all the best. I'll see you later next Saturday, but I got a feeling I'll be seeing you on Monday, Tuesday afternoon, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock Eastern, maybe 3 o'clock if they make a late announcement. I think we'll be back next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Doing my last backup of the year. Absolutely. Backup. It's a good point. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. I'll talk to you all later.